18 governments had a meeting where they called for more censorship. And you know what happened? The U.S. said, nah, no thanks. God, I love the First Amendment. Do I like what these people, this guy did in New Zealand? No way. Who would? Very few fringe, crazy people would like what that person was doing. And if you're someone like PewDiePie or Candace Owens, who got named by this dude, you're probably extremely unhappy too. If you're fans of those individuals, you're probably unhappy. No, I don't like hate speech. Hate speech is bad. But should we ban people's opinions? No. Where do you draw the line? It is a slippery slope. And we need to be able to criticize bad ideas. Fortunately for us here in the States, we have a First Amendment, which means when it came to the call to control speech on the internet, the U.S. said, no, thank you. Because you can't do it. Quite literally in the U.S., you cannot restrict speech. The government can't agree to these things. Sorry, we have a constitution that says never going to happen. This story is from the Washington Post. White House declines to back Christchurch call to stamp out online extremism amid free speech concerns. The United States on Wednesday broke with 18 governments and top American tech firms by declining to endorse a New Zealand-led response to the live-streamed incidents at the two Christchurch mosques, saying free speech concerns prevented the White House from formally endorsing the largest campaign to date targeting extremism online. The Christchurch call, unveiled at an international gathering in Paris, commits foreign countries and tech giants to be more vigilant about the spread of hate on social media. It reflects heightened global frustrations with the inability of Facebook, Google, and Twitter to restrain hateful posts, photos, and videos that have spawned real-world violence. Now, that's the argument they use, spawned real-world violence. Unfortunately, it's an opinion. Curious how an opinion gets put into a Washington Post story, because the line between opinion and fact for news organizations is gone. Let's break this down. They say it reflects heightened global frustrations with the inability of Facebook, Google, and Twitter to restrain hateful posts, photos, and videos that have spawned real-world violence. What posts? Specifically, what posts? We have no facts confirming that online content actually led to these things. We don't. We know that some people are bad people. We know that the internet is where our culture is born and culture influences people. But why is the Washington Post including an opinion? Who's frustrated? Global frustrations from who? Seriously, from these 18 governments? Well, 18 is what, less than 10% of the governments in the world? Why, I'm sorry to break into this tirade, but man, the media really frustrates me. They always do this, pushing opinion masquerading as fact. Leaders from across the globe pledged to counter online extremism, including through new regulation, and to encourage media outlets to apply ethical standards when depicting terrorist events online. Companies including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, meanwhile, said they'd work more closely to ensure their sites don't become conduits for terror. They also committed to accelerated research and information sharing with governments in the wake of the recent attacks. The call is named after the New Zealand city where a bad guy ended the life of 51 people in a March attack broadcast on social media sites. Facebook, Google, and Twitter struggled to take down copies of the videos as it spread on the web, prompting an international backlash from regulators who felt malicious actors had evaded Silicon Valley's defense too easily. Let's stop here. Let's point something out. You will never stop people who want to do these things. Prohibition just doesn't work. Restriction and regulation can work. It's also, we also have another story here that I'm going to pop over real quick. Facebook changes live stream rules after the New Zealand incident. You can change your rules. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of governments are very happy to have Google and Facebook, Twitter, and others monopolizing speech is because when it comes to, say, the dark web, how people refer to it, you can't stop people from accessing it. You can't. There's a bunch of different ways that people can bypass your censorship. VPNs, dial-up phone lines. There were hackers during the Arab Spring telecomics. That's what they called themselves. And they created dial-up phone lines so that when the government shut down the internet completely, they could still use the phones to connect to the internet and get information in and out. So the government can't stop this. They're trying, though. One of the most important things in implementing mass censorship will be the consolidation onto a single platform, because now Twitter can restrict you. Now, of course, when it comes to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc., you can use a VPN. You can create a new IP address. You can create a new profile, you can act anonymously, so you can still get back on these platforms. But the platforms have been getting ban happy. Another thing that's great for these governments is that they can claim the government supports free speech, but it's the private entity like we're seeing in the US. The US enshrined the freedom of speech in the First Amendment. But now, special interests are probably loving the fact that speech is being privatized by these big platforms. Well, unfortunately, for these 18 governments who want more censorship online, it's not going to work in the US. We're seeing laws get passed in Australia, I believe it's Australia and the UK, that are extremely restrictive in terms of speech. Here in the US, we're going the other direction. There's actually conversations and laws being presented that would stop the restriction of speech because it is in our culture and enshrined in our Constitution, which I gotta say, I'm very happy. I'm very happy about every day. I am very grateful. America, number one, please. They say New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, this is back at the Washington Post story, and French President Emmanuel Macron organized the call to action, part of Ardern's international plea this year for greater social media accountability. Along with New Zealand and France, countries such as Australia, Canada, and the UK endorsed the document, as did tech giants including Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Twitter. So let's stress this point. In the United States, the government can't enact policy to restrict speech, but you better damn well believe Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Twitter, American companies, would love to restrict your speech and have agreed to speech restrictions. And they have it in their rules. Now, look, I don't have sympathy for hate speech. I do not like it. I think it's bad. I think it weakens your argument. But you know what? Let them weaken their argument. That's the point. When a weird wackaloon fringe person goes online and says crazy hate speech, I say, good. Now we all know that you're crazy. You've undermined yourself. Do you know what happens when you censor the crazies? The only people left are the suit-wearing types. It's really funny how we see these stories from like the Daily Beast or whatever, where they're talking about how the alt-right is trying to dress up in suits to cover up how crazy their ideas are. And the way I see it, I'm like, no, they're not. Those are the suit-wearing types. It's just that you've banned the crazies, so the only people left are the suit-wearing smooth talkers who are trying to influence you. You are giving them cover. Let the weirdos speak. What happens? You get people on the left like Sarah Jong and other weirdos who have racist beliefs, and they say crazy stuff and we can all see it. And then we're like, well, those people are nuts. And the people standing next to them, they believe the same thing. But what happens when you censor only the crazies on one side? Well, then you leave the suit-wearing smooth talkers. No, let the crazies talk about what they really believe so we know. Which is why it's great that we have the First Amendment. Let them speak. Unfortunately, Google will still restrict speech. Google, there was a point, I talked about this not that long ago, but where a certain word and any combination of the word was banned from Google shopping search. So you couldn't search for toys because, like, you ever hear of Gundam Wing, the anime? Yeah, what's the first three letters of that name, Gundam Wing? If you searched for that, nothing would come up. If you searched for the toy, it wouldn't come up. In fact, you couldn't search for Gunnison, Colorado. Oh my God, that's why censorship is insane. And people were asking Google, why can't I looked up like the Gunnison, I think it's Gunnison, Colorado, Historical Society or something like that. And it didn't come up. I tried to buy souvenirs, couldn't come up because Google censored it. So what ends up happening is I try having an argument with someone saying I can prove these people believe weird things, but Google is cleaning them up. Stop. Stop. Let us see what they're saying so we know they're crazy people. America's top tech giants celebrated the call, a voluntary effort, not full regulation, as an important step toward tackling one of the web's biggest challenges. Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Twitter issued a joint statement saying it is right that we come together, resolute in our commitment to ensure we are doing all we can to fight the hatred and extremism that leads to violence. And that's a far left argument that speech results in violence. No, hold on. Incitement does. Saying, telling someone to go do something does. But they're trying to move the line to say hating someone leads to violence. Sure. Okay? Sure. Everything leads in some direction, but we have to figure out what we're going to draw the line at. We need to draw the line at people saying, take action, and the people taking action. Not the people saying, I just plain don't like pineapple on pizza. Could you imagine if someone said, you saying you don't like coffee will lead to violence against coffee growers? Oh, because think about the chain of events. I don't like coffee. Then people start talking, you get radicalized by coffee content. This is literally what they're saying. Simply because someone goes on Twitter or goes on YouTube and says, I just plain don't like Catholics, doesn't mean you're going to get a bunch of people who are going to go out and harm Catholics. It might happen, but blame the perpetrators who break the rules and hurt other people, not someone for saying, I don't like something. Hate is a natural human emotion. You don't end the hate by shutting people up and putting them in a box. That makes them more hateful, and they try and justify the way they feel. So let's just wrap up the story here. The story ends by saying, greater regulation on tech companies is needed, but we shouldn't be calling on tech companies to remove content without also demanding that they act with far more transparency and accountability, he said. Otherwise, companies will censor first and ask questions later, leaving users with little recourse to appeal poor decisions and uphold their right to free expression. But I'm curious why they say greater regulation on tech companies is needed. That's an opinion. That is a straight opinion, and I don't see opinion. It just says tech policy. Once again, I am faced with another news organization creating an opinion piece masquerading as fact, but welcome. Welcome to the future. News is few and far between, but that's why, final thought, we're pushing forward to expand Subverse. And I'm really, happy to announce things look pretty good. We may already have a space. I'm hoping to secure some investment. If you're an investor and you want to get involved, we have a bunch of plans. We're hiring. I will add one more thing. If you did watch the video on my main channel where I announced everything we're doing, please do not go to the physical space because it is not set up for the public. And there's a bunch of other people who work there that have nothing to do with us that are getting kind of, worried. So don't do that. Just send an email to pitch@subverse.net if you're interested in working with us. And also, do not email me personally because it will just get sent into a spam folder. I'm not going to read through emails. It is all going to pitch@subverse.net. By all means, feel free to email me for anything else. But just, if I get an email about, people have sent me, 50 emails. I can't go through them. I can't. And I can't go through each one to try and forward it to Pitch. You've got to send it to them, not to me. But by all means, you can email me about whatever you want. I do read it. I'll end there by saying our goal for Subverse is to do the right thing, is to do good journalism, and we're seeing some pretty good growth. Hopefully that's enough. Hopefully we can get investment and we can crowdfund or something and we can make it sustainable. Because admittedly, I'll end with one more thought too. As I'm shifting over to putting more focus into building up Subverse and organizing things, then it means, revenue in other areas goes down. So it is what it is, but we're going to have more announcements coming up soon. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. For those that are watching on YouTube, I just want to clarify for the past few videos. This is now going to be an hour-long podcast on iTunes, Spotify, etc. I hope. I got to figure it out. It's actually kind of expensive to host a daily podcast that's an hour long, but hey, I'm doing my best. And it is what it is. So I'm trying to figure out how they can be both at the same time. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you tomorrow on YouTube at 10 a.m. or for those that are listening to the podcast every day at 7 p.m. Adios.